1, 2, 3. Arbor Day came early. The wizard showed up out of the goblin caverns into the forest. Fresh food. Tell us where we're going and why and what the big gem is about.
The gem is not a gem. It is a seed. A seed for the great tree. The high tree, lord of all the trees.
And in it, they seem to see colors moving, life itself swirling. The goblins had the thing in their lair, a group of adventurers who have proven themselves to be capable, who might help plant it. Bob Johnny is on the watch. Wolves. Barry says, "They're wolves. Here, sword." 3 of them break off from the pack. "Let's go have dinner." And the axe on fire goes chopping through them. He's webbing some of the wolves. The wolves decide they've had enough. Next day, they continue traveling. And at the edge of the clearing, there are 3 trees that sort of stand distinct from the rest of the forest.
You must go on your own, and with your own intelligence, your own insight. Watch. Remember.
Watch and remember. Very well. In they go to this cluster of trees. Stone on the ground, okay. They brush away the snow and they find there is indeed a stone there. It's a rough stone, looks natural, not carved, except carved into the stone are 2 lines which intersect at a right angle, and at the tip of one of them is carved an arrowhead. Now, I have made it standard in the game that pretty much everyone knows which way north and south, east and west are. We're living at a time without clocks and cell phones and any of that other stuff. People could read the sun. People knew what time it was by where the sun was in the sky, and to know where the sun is means you know where east, west, north, south are, right? If you're going to be able to tell, oh, it's around 3 o'clock, you must have some idea of which way north and south are. So I've made this just part of the knowledge that people carry with them. It's not special knowledge, it's not tracking, anything like that. It's just common knowledge. And they can see that this arrow line points north. And so they reason that this must be a compass rose, north, south, east, west. Okay, all right, fine. The trees, he said, look at the trees. They looked at the trees. And they noticed that in the midst of these coniferous trees, thick fir trees with lots of branches, there are spots. If you stand at the stone and look at each tree, there's clearly a gap where you can see all the way to the trunk. And on the trunk is carved a symbol. And the symbols look like these. Okay. What on earth? Maybe the square thing is where the seed has to be planted, and the triangle is the tree that we're supposed to plant. Or maybe the square is where we are, and the triangle is where the tree gets planted. Okay. They're not seeing it yet. Are you seeing it? They're not seeing it yet. Mama is seeing it. Fire is seeing it, but she generally lets the boys do the puzzles and only jumps in when there is absolutely no way they're going to get something like this. So she lets them work it out for a while, and finally, there may have been a couple of nudges from her. They figure out that the triangle is not a tree, it's an arrow. Right? Why is there a compass rose if these are trees? Why are the compass rose? Oh, maybe they're arrows. Maybe they point in directions. And so they look at the pictures. They assume that up is north. They look at the compass rose. They orient themselves there, and then they look in those directions. And I say, leading out of this clearing, this little gathering of trees, you can see a slight path. It's not real obvious. If you're not looking for it, it's hard to see. But there's a little bit of give in the vegetation here. There's a little bit of easier path here on the ground, fewer stones and whatnot. Yeah, there might be. All right. Well, let's take one of the directions, right? So they head out in one of the directions. They head out randomly. They just say, well, that one, right? And it leads them on a path, and they're going through, and I describe, the trees close around you and really make this a bit of a tunnel. And eventually you curve around, you twist, you turn this way and that, and you enter into a small clearing of 3 trees with a stone on the ground in the middle. And footprints leading out one of the paths. They've done a loop. Wrong choice. This was me helping them, giving them the first answer. Those 2 choices just lead to each other. The third choice is the way they want to go. All right. Well, those 2 are off the table. Let's try the other one, and off they go. And again, I describe the landscape of twisting through the woods. They come to another small clearing where there are trees clearly carved, this time 4 of them, and the symbols there look like this. All right, I'm not going to lead you through the entire puzzle, all right, because it would be harder to solve this way than the way they had it. I was giving them scraps of paper that had these symbols printed on them, right? So they were able to look at them and try them in different combinations. What if we went this way, that way? What this is a few opening bars from the song Oak and Ash and Thorn. A song all about trees, right? I thought it was appropriate. And all 3 of them take violin. All 3 of them can read music. So the fact that they haven't picked up that this is music yet is really astonishing to me. It might be the square notes, which is how notation was done in the Middle Ages, right? That's how the great psalters and hymn books of the Middle Ages were written. Anyway, so they don't quite pick up that it's music at first. And they faff around for a while. For a while they think it must be the one where the square is lowest and closest to the arrow. If it's close to the arrow, we'll go that way. And they try that, and they go down some dead-end paths. And some of them are just dead ends. I see you come to a place where the forest is impenetrable. The trees and the undergrowth are just too thick, you can't go. But then I start to get creative. You're walking down the path, and it's turning a corner. As you come around, you see, hovering in the air in front of you, this huge sphere with tentacles coming out of its top, with little tiny eyeballs at the end of the tentacles and a huge eye in the center and an enormous leering mouth. Ah! They know a beholder, right? The characters in the game have never encountered one, but the players sure know a beholder, and they turn around and they run. Metagaming or not, who cares? They're running. Now, the beholder isn't there. It is an illusion. And this opens up a lot of fun. So I start to play with it, right? If they go down the wrong way, you suddenly stumble across a chasm. You almost fall in to this gaping chasm that opens at your feet, 500 meters down and 100 meters across. You couldn't jump it, you can't cross it, right? And they turn around, and they're getting it that these are dead ends, right? At one point, they stumble into a clearing, and I say that at the other side, you see the hunched shoulders of a human figure, but massive. It's a giant. And he's crying. He's got his back to you, but he's weeping, shaking. Let's leave. It was just fun. We were just playing around. Eventually, Fleetwood says, hang on. These are musical notes. He figures it out, right? He figures out that part. These are musical notes. I'll get my violin. And he goes and gets his violin, and he starts to play it. And what they've done so far sounds awful, right? So he goes back to a place where it makes a little more sense. He's got the first 2 or 3 notes are right. So he goes back to that, and because it makes musical sense. The notes as put down in a different order just don't sound good. They don't flow together well. So he starts to play it, he goes, ba-da-da, ba-da-da. Well, that could be anything, right? That could be anything. Let's try the next one. We went this way last time. Clearly that's not right because it led to notes that didn't work. We'll go this way. And they try another way. It's the right one. They come to another clearing with trees, with the symbols carved into them. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ah, now he's figuring it out. Look around. What's the next note? What's the next note? Okay, and then he tries each note, and he plays it. He plays the 4 they have with the next note. Ah, that's that one, that one, that one. And they figure it out. It was really cool to watch them work that out, right? And figure out that they're notes. Eventually, they come to a large clearing, in the midst of which is a large stone, right? Flat. It's a natural stone, but it has a flat top. I forgot to mention, before they went in, the wizard did tell them that the seed must be planted in a hole that has been drilled in a large stone altar. Well, they take this to be the large stone altar. And they search it and indeed find a perfect circle drilled into it. There's some snow and other muck that has fallen in there. They clear it all out. And they drop in the seed. Now what? Do we have to wait for a tree to grow? There is a gentle, low rumble, and from the hole, a glow begins to emerge. And as the rumble builds in volume, out from the hole extends a gentle, tender little shoot. Something is growing. Suddenly, they hear another rumbling, this time not from the hole, but from all around, and they look. I say you see on the ground a trembling as out of the ground erupt rocks that shake off dirt or snow or moss and uproot themselves from the ground. They begin to roll toward one end of the clearing. The rocks from all around, and now rocks are leaping from the ground, smaller ones flying past you, zinging their way to the other end of the clearing. And at that end of the clearing, they're roiling around like a boiling pot as they form and other rocks join and smash into it. And as it grows, it takes the shape of an earth elemental. A big, rocky, tough earth elemental. It bellows and charges toward the stone tablet. The tree. It's looking not at them, but at the tree. It wants to tear it out. Protect the tree! And they get themselves between the tree and this charging elemental, all of them knowing they have not recovered very well in hit points. They've had a couple of nights' sleep since their last battle. None of them are anywhere near full strength. But here they are, weapons out. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt. It takes some damage, some rocks go flying off, but this thing is tough. It keeps charging. Rasingas! It closes to melee range. There stands Touchberry and Bob Johnny, and they do battle. This is epic. Touchberry refuses to retreat. He is down at 1.24 hit points. If he is touched by this thing again, he is dead. He refuses to move. Fortunately, it is much bigger than man size, so it gets a slight penalty trying to attack him, but still, it was an insane brave thing to do. There he stands his ground. Bob Johnny as well, although Bob Johnny at one point says, I've got to back out. I've got to back out, because Bob Johnny, boom, gets hit, right? Goes flying back and says, I can't anymore. I can't. Another hit and I'm done for. Fleetwood is pouring arrows in because he's so low. Foefire is pouring arrows in. At one point she says, I've got to get in there, because she did a bit better in her hit point recovery. She gets in there with her sword. It's a mess. It's a great, glorious mess. And this thing is picking up rocks and chucking them. And it's brilliant. Eventually, though, the heroism of the party does prevail, and they figure out a way to lure him on and attack him from behind, and all sorts of, they're working out the tactics of the battle on the table. They eventually deal the last punishing blow. I think it may have been the axe that of Hrothgar, or it was Touchberry with his sword. It was a melee blow at any rate, because I know it was like, well, if they don't kill him, I'm rolling another attack, and he's got a real good chance of hitting. But they do destroy it. The final blow, and the rocks begin to crumble. I see the thing in front of you just starts to shake and totter as rocks fall off and bounce down around the ground. Is the tree okay? This actually saved them in the battle a couple of times, because the thing would hit them, get them out of the way, but it would go for the tree. It was not really interested in killing them. It wanted to tear the tree down. So it was heading for the tree, and they had to keep intercepting it and distracting it. So a couple of times, the fact that it really didn't chase them. If it had been bent on killing them, it would have chased them around. It probably would have done them in, but it was focused on the tree. So now they turn, is the tree okay? Did it survive? And there it is. It's now, grown to about 10 feet tall, and it's starting to spread. I say, as you watch it, it grows. You can see it getting bigger in front of your eyes, growing and growing. And as you watch, the rumbling that had been at the beginning begins to change. Now it is a music, a beautiful music, untouchable. You can't grasp it, you can't hold it, you can't remember it after it's gone, but it's beautiful in the moment as this thing grows and grows. And as it grows, the green of its needles begins to change, and almost like a fire spreads out a warm red color as this tree towers over anything else in the entire forest. All right, so I found a Christmas decoration on sale during January, and I thought that would be a cool piece, and I wrote an adventure around it. So sue me. Here this thing is, towering above, and as they watch it reaching maturity in front of them within like half an hour to an hour, they hear a voice.
Ah, you succeeded. I thought you would.
And they turn and they see there's the old magic user, driving the wagon in. How did you get that through all of the maze, all the tight turns and everything?
Oh, there were no tight turns. It was broad and open and easy, just like the rest of this forest has been. I did see a rather disturbed giant on the way, though. Thought it best not to bother him.